Kamala's been doing the interview rounds, as we've covered. She was on the Call Her Daddy sex podcast last week. She did Howard Stern. She was on with Stephen Colbert this week. We'll have some clips from that. But she was also on The View all in the last few days. So she's going to the absolute safest, least challenging forums she can possibly find. And even in those forums, it's not going especially well. Here's a clip that lots of people are talking about. This is from her segment on The View. For Kamala Harris, The View is pretty much the safest of all the safe places that you can go, and there are many safe places for someone like her with her political views. But The View most of all. And yet, even on The View, she found herself facing what proves to be a difficult question for her, and it didn't go, as I said, it didn't go very well. Let's watch that.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Well, Donald Trump approves that message. We know that. And she's getting a hard time for that answer. Conservatives are mocking her for it. But really, what do you expect her to say? I mean, it's not a bad answer so much as, I mean, she's bad at her job and so is Biden. So it's the job that has been bad, not the answer, because the truth is that there's no good answer. When she's asked, what would you do differently from Biden? There really is no good answer. I mean, if she says that she would do things differently from Biden, then she's turning on the administration that she's a part of. She's agreeing with Trump that Biden is, Biden screwed up and that, and that becomes the headline. And then she's really in the impossible position of having to argue that she, as somebody at least partially responsible for those failures, is better equipped to fix them than a person who was not responsible for them. And she can't really do that. I don't think politically she can come out and start talking about the things that she wants to do better than Joe Biden. That would probably be a political disaster for her. At the same time, it's also a political disaster to say that she won't change anything. They're both disasters, and there is no good answer. And that's what happens when you're incompetent and he's incompetent, and now you're running and you're asking the voters for a promotion. It creates all kinds of impossible scenarios and unanswerable questions. So you're starting to understand why she didn't do any interviews for the first month of her campaign. It's not just that she's really bad at them, though she is. It's also that there are so many questions she can't answer. Even if she was brilliant, she wouldn't really be able to answer them because of her unique situation. And her unique situation is that she's the vice president of a failed administration, and she's trying to run as a kind of change candidate, even though she's an incumbent, essentially. And that it's untenable. It's an untenable situation. She did get a second chance. Colbert asked her later in the day, the same day, I think, asked her the same question again. So this is take two. And here's what she came up with.
Polling shows that a lot of people, especially independent voters, really want this to be a change election, and that they tend to break for you in terms of thinking about change. You are a member of the President's administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of...
Yes.
But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump. And so when we think about the significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president, it is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country. I love that it is our character and nature to be an ambitious people. We have aspirations, we have dreams, we have incredible work ethic, and I just believe that we can create and build upon the success we've achieved in a way that we continue to grow opportunity and in that way grow the strength of our nation. So, for example, my economic policies, I think of it and I've named it as creating an opportunity.
Shut up. Good Lord, she's so dumb. She's so dumb. So that's her revised answer, is that she'll be different from Biden because she's not him, which is true technically. I mean, she is a different person. She's like physically not the same person biologically. Their DNA is not the same. So she's not him. And also she believes in the dreams and aspirations of the American people. I mean, that stuff, it's one of her go-tos. I will say it's a little disappointing because she said, she began the sentence with, when you think about the significance of, and everybody at home, when you hear that, you're like, she's good, because you think she's going to give us a passage of time. Usually when you think about the significance of the passage of time is what she would say. And so I thought she was going to do the thing again with the passage of time. And that's a crowd pleaser. You know, that's a greatest hit. And that would have been great, but she didn't. Instead, she started blathering about the dreams and aspirations of the American people. I know I said there's no good answer here. Like, there really isn't. I don't even know. I mean, if I wanted to help her politically, I'm not sure I could come up with a good answer that she can give to that question. But even so, especially that answer there was still, even acknowledging there's no good answer because she's incompetent, Joe Biden's incompetent, and their administration has been such a disastrous failure. So all you can really do is obfuscate and, filibuster and change the subject. So that's the only choice you really have, is that. She's trying to do that here, and she's so bad at it. Especially, and there's nothing cringier with Kamala than when she lapses into this motivational speaker thing. And you could tell that she thinks she's being so inspirational, but it's so incredibly lame. But none of that matters anyway, because who cares about what kind of job Kamala Harris can do or has done? Who cares about her competence? All that matters is that you can sit down with Kamala and have a beer. And if you didn't know that, they proved it in this interview by drinking a beer. Let's watch that.
When you first became the nominee and named Tim Walz as your vice president nominee, people were calling it the vibe election. All the vibes were all good. But elections, I think, are won on vibes, because one of the old saws is they just want somebody they can have a beer with. Uh-huh. So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay. This was, now we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You asked for Miller High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
So cheers.
Okay, cheers.
There you go. Ooh. That tastes like the beautiful city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
The champagne of beers.
There you go.
Well, I mean, never mind. I'm going to vote for Kamala, I think. She drank a beer. I'm convinced. I don't know about you guys. I'm convinced. Hey, this woman can drink a beer, then that's what you need in a president. People are applauding. Why are you applauding that she took a sip of beer? What's even going on in your mind? I mean, there's nothing going on in your mind. They're just trained SEALs, and probably the applause sign was lit up. I mean, certainly it was, and so they were obeying that. But still, it's so lame. They're going out of their way to try to prove they know. They've basically, and Colbert kind of admits it, that yeah, it is a vibe election. Okay, so what? Because they can't sell her based on her accomplishments. She has no accomplishments. They can't sell her based on her skills. She has no skills. The only thing they have are the vibes, and but she has none of the vibes. She doesn't. She can't do it. She can physically take a sip of beer, and that's it. Now, if you're not convinced that Kamala is personable and relatable, if the beer didn't convince you, if the fact that she's capable of taking a sip of crappy beer, if that didn't convince you that she's relatable and she's your best friend, well, then check out this moment from Howard Stern, her Howard Stern interview. This was the other very, very probing interview that she sat down for. And, well, if the beer wasn't enough, then I think probably this will be.
When you ran for Senate, it was bittersweet, right? You won, which is great. But you said, I ate a whole bag of Doritos that night. That's your thing, Doritos?
Oh, I love Doritos. It's original nacho. But let me just tell you, it was a family-sized bag.
Wow.
I sat on the couch.
But you're in good shape. Are you like
I work out
nauseous?
every morning.
Did you work out this morning?
I did.
Where did you work out?
On the elliptical at the hotel.
Oh, they bring one up to your room?
Yeah.
Nice. How long do you go on the elliptical?
Half an hour to 45 minutes.
You're not bored out of your skull on that thing?
I'm watching a variety of things. That's how I catch
Morning
it.
Joe?
Yeah.
He's
sometimes.
something, huh?
Yeah.
That Morning Joe.
Uh-huh.
I love that guy.
I do too. Joe Scarborough. Yeah.
A former Republican.
Yes.
He can't vote in his own
But
party.
he loves our country. I don't agree with him on every issue, but we agree on I think the most important at this moment for sure.
Why are you eating for breakfast?
So she's had Doritos. She likes Doritos. I don't know if you've heard that. This is actually, the fact that she likes Doritos is a pillar of her campaign. It's one of the most, as far as her campaign's concerned, it's one of the most salient facts about her is that she likes Doritos because nobody cares. Up to this point, no one's asked. Only Howard Stern is vapid enough to ask about it. But we've heard it anyway, over and over and over again, is that she likes Doritos. And this is how desperate they are to make her relate to the common man. And it doesn't work. And also, by the way, like it wouldn't even matter if it did. Even if you could convince us that she's a really personable, friendly person and would be a lot of fun to hang out with, which you have not convinced us of that. But even if you could, it still would not mean anything. It would not get you closer, even an inch closer to proving that she'd be a good president. But now that we've gone through all that, and even though the personable element doesn't really matter for a president, I don't care if a president is personable. It doesn't matter to me. I care if they can get the job done. But let's just compare, now that we've seen Kamala trying her best to be relatable and personable, let's compare Kamala attempting to do this in these kinds of sort of casual conversations to Trump doing the same thing. So here's Trump on Andrew Schultz's podcast. And this just came out this morning, I think. And here's just one clip. We'll play a little bit of this.
Over the last week, I have to, when we talk about funny or sad, I think it's more sad than funny.
Yeah.
He has one ability I don't have.
Yeah.
He sleeps. He can sleep. This guy goes on a beach and he lays down on one of those, 6 ounce, they weigh 6 ounces and you can't lift it.
Yeah.
They're meant, they're meant for children.
Yeah.
Young people and old people to lift.
Yeah.
They're aluminum, hollowed aluminum.
Yeah.
They weigh very little, and he can't lift. And somebody convinced him he looks good in a bathing suit. And when you're 82, typically bathing suits aren't going to make you look great.
Right,
You're
right.
not going to be enhanced.
Yeah.
All right? It's just one of those things. I can't be sure about that, but typically you don't.
Depends what he's packing. He could.
I don't know what
like
the hell he's packing, but I don't want to, and I don't want to know either. I don't know, but he has an ability to fall asleep while on camera. He can lie down on one of those things, and in minutes he's stone cold out.
How does he do it?
And he's got cameras because he's the president, so they have cameras on him.
Yeah.
And then they show him sleeping on the beach.
Yeah.
You'll never see me sleeping in front of camera.
And the whole interview is like that, I'm sure. This is the one of the many differences between Kamala and Trump, and this is why her media assault right now to try to make herself seem like a real person, it's doomed to fail because it's really the worst strategy I think that they could choose for Kamala. There probably aren't any good strategies for her, but it might be the worst one to put her in these kinds of environments. It's the worst thing they could do. Yeah, she's not good at real interviews. She obviously did very poorly in the 60 Minutes interview. But I think of the two, you got to choose your poison pill. And if I'm running the Kamala campaign, I'm going to choose the 60-minute style interviews, because when you put her in these kinds of environments, she just doesn't do well. And now, but also she's in Trump's lane now. This is what Trump does better than any politician that's ever lived. She does this better than any politician ever anywhere in history. I mean, honestly, this kind of thing. If you could choose any politician that's ever existed to go on Andrew Schultz's podcast, or even Howard Stern, although Howard Stern would never have him now, but if you could choose anyone, you choose Trump. That's his thing. That's his lane. And for him, it's very effortless and casual, and he's funny, and he's talking to a comedian, making the comedian laugh. Kamala Harris would not be able to do that. So the contrast is not favorable to her at all. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.